Mr. Rosemond, thank you so much for taking your time to be with me and my listeners today. Many people listening to you have been readers of yours for a long time, but for those who might be new, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Well, I'm licensed as a psychologist. I really don't believe in psychology. I'm a heretic in my profession, certainly an outlier. I've been writing a nationally syndicated newspaper column since 1976. It used to appear in about 750 newspapers when newspapers were thriving.
Mm-hmm.
It's down to about 200 today. I've written about 20 books. I say about because how you count depends on, updated editions and things like that.
True. Yeah.
About 20 books on what used to be called child rearing and is now called parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I used to be the busiest public speaker in the parenting field, but the pandemic pulled the rug out from under that 2 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. And my public speaking career is just coming back to life. So, my real qualifications, Andy, I've been married to the same woman for 54 years. We were married when she was 19 and I was 20. And I was supporting us playing in a rock and roll band.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful.
Yeah, our claim to fame was we actually opened for REO Speedwagon
Oh,
twice.
wow.
And yeah, that was back in REO's very early days. They were beginning to branch out from sort of a local University of Illinois act to a more regional and then a national act. And we had a battle of the bands with them on my college campus, Western Illinois University, and we beat them.
Wow.
Of course, it was a hometown and highly biased audience.
Sure, it was, but
And
hey,
so, yeah,
yeah,
so
that's a great story.
they asked us to open for them a couple of times. Um, and I always tell people the purpose of the opening band is to make the headliner sound really good. So, yeah.
There you go.
So
There-
anyway, we have two children, both adults, around the age of, well, they're in their early 50s, and seven grandchildren.
Wonderful. That is wonderful. I've heard you speak in person, and my wife said, "Hey, we're going to go see John Rosemond. He's coming to town." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm not sure who this is. They're like, "Oh no, he's a psychologist and he specializes in family and children." And I thought, okay, he's going to be one of those people that says you should never discipline your kids and they need a safe space. And I'm like, she gets me to go and I sit down and you start to speak and it is perfect. And I think to myself, I love everything this guy is saying because he is nothing like I expected him to be. You really understand the relationship between a parent and a child, and you explain that wonderfully.
Well, thank you, Andy. I appreciate that. I've been doing what I'm doing for 50 years and call it, and I love what I do. It's a passion, and I'm 74 years old. People ask me, when are you going to retire? And my answer is, I will retire when I am forced to do so because I can't think straight anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And in that event, someone else is going to have to point that out to me. So,
Very good. Very good. So the reason I wanted to have you on the show today is because you recently made an excellent point that was on Facebook that talked about a child's emotional security. There was a combination of two things that you said that helped provide security for a child. Can you share with us what that is?
well, it's a parent's two utmost responsibilities to provide to their children unconditional love and unequivocal authority. And those two ingredients, if you will, kept in a state of balance, which they need to be in, provide for a child a very solid enduring platform of well-being, security, whatever you want to call it. They
Very
allow a child to grow up, and furthermore, they allow a child to leave home.
mm,
And I think, I say that, Andy, because parents today seem to have forgotten that the purpose of raising a child is to emancipate the child.
right.
Yeah, the purpose of raising a child is to raise the child to adulthood and enable the child to establish an independent, autonomous life for himself.
Right. I agree with you there. It seems sometimes as a parent, I feel selfish because my son is 9 and like I kind of want him to always be around because he's not a teenager yet. So I understand the point where like parents they want to keep their children maybe innocent, and they don't necessarily raise them for a future. Is that right?
I'm not sure it's innocence. And I'm not sure it's innocence because I think children are being exposed to more and more things that they should not be exposed to.
Agreed. Yeah.
For example, I don't think children should be exposed to the internet until well into their teenage years.
Mm,
Um, I think the internet is a very dangerous place to be letting children roam about. I think social media are very dangerous things to be letting children access. Um, and I'm very, very concerned about the state of childhood in America as it relates to those sorts of things. Um, I think it's not a matter of protecting children's innocence. It's a matter of parents who really and truly don't have a good grasp of what this is all about in the first place. We have prioritized, for example, just to give one example, we have prioritized, or today's parents seem to have prioritized their children's achievements.
mm,
And this is the reason for the bumper sticker, by the way. My child is an honor student, Dad.
right.
One of the most disrespectful things you can put on, on your car and drive around town with, a sign proclaiming that you have something that somebody else doesn't have. But today's parents have a very difficult time wrapping their heads around the fact that 60 years ago, when I was being raised, uh, my parents really didn't care whether I made C's or A's in school. They just told me that I was expected to do my best.
Mm,
And they weren't going to help me because then it wouldn't have been my best.
right.
And the issue that I talk to a great deal, and predominantly when I'm up in front of audiences through my books, newspaper column, is the radical 180-degree night and day difference between the raising of children and how it was done when I was a kid and the raising of children today. There is no overlap.
Mm,
There is no overlap. Unconditional love. Most parents today, I find anyway, Andy, unfortunately, parents who sincerely love their children are not really authentically loving their children. They are enabling their children.
mm,
The parent who has become the professional or semi-professional enabler has become the norm in America today.
mm,
The parent who, my parents, I can't remember them helping me with my homework. Most people my age will tell you, we don't remember our parents helping us with our homework. We don't remember our parents coming to our games. You know,
right.
children's games were children's games. The audience was primarily consisted of other children in the neighborhood.
Hmm.
And so you'd have a little league game. There would be no adults there except the coaches. Um, the audience would be kids in the neighborhood, and the kids for this team would sit over here, and the kids for this team would sit over here, and you weren't performing for adults. It
Hmm.
was strictly a child's environment, except for the three or four coaches present. Your parents didn't help you with your homework, and yet school achievement was considerably higher back then.
Hmm.
And kids got no individual attention because classes were huge.
Right.
My first grade class contained 50 children, 50, 50,
Uh-huh.
one teacher, you know. Uh, a first grade class today contains 2 adults and 25 kids. So you got an adult child ratio of 1 to 12. Can you imagine? I went to a first grade where the adult child ratio was 4 times what it is
Mm.
normatively today. We came to school, I say kids in my day and time. We came to first grade not knowing our ABCs. Our first grade was, for the most part across the country, the first grade we attended in school.
Right.
Kindergarten was not universal.
Right.
Most kids were at home during the day for the first um, 5 or so years of their lives, 6 or so years of their lives. Then they went to first grade. We went to first grade not knowing our ABCs. We sat in what today would be considered criminally overcrowded classrooms. And yet at the end of first grade, we were reading at a higher level than today's kids,
Mm.
whose parents are helping them at home and they've got, you know, tutors after school and so on and so forth. And people don't realize that when you I don't think people even understand what enabling is anymore when it comes to children.
Right.
But
It seems like
people
the
that
normal behavior.
yeah, it's normal behavior. It's become so normalized that it doesn't stand out. And people don't realize that when you enable, you don't improve a kid's skills in whatever area you're enabling. You make it virtually a guarantee that the child is not going to do as well as he would have done on his own.
Hmm.
The more dependent the child becomes on an outside source for his school achievement in that case, using that as an example, the more dependent the child becomes, the lower his achievement level goes. It doesn't matter what the intention of the adult involved is. It doesn't matter what the IQ of the adult is. It doesn't matter what the IQ of the child is. And by the way, Andy, research has confirmed this,
Hmm.
that the more adults help children with homework, the lower their achievement level is.
Mm.
But you got so many adults doing this, like we mentioned a moment ago. This has become so normative that an adult who says to a teacher, "I'm not going to help my kid with his homework," I mean, that adult is regarded as completely irresponsible today.
Right. Yeah, you're ostracized for
Yeah.
saying something like that. Right.
Whereas my sixth grade science teacher told us when he assigned us a science project, if there's any indication on the project that your parents helped you, you are getting an F.
Mm.
And, today it's just assumed the parent helps,
Right.
the
Right.
parent
Or
does.
the parent does it for the child. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
You brought up a minute ago a very good point about the online world as it regards to children. And I would like to know your thoughts on this because I'm one of these parents that I see the issues that the internet brings. And the internet is the internet. So I'll ask you specifically, what is your feeling about social media and children?
The overwhelming percent of parents over the last 3 to 4 years who have come to me concerning issues with young teenage girls, in every single instant, the girl involved, the girl in question is absorbed into social media. She is depressed. She is
Mm,
anxious. She is rebellious. She is claiming to be trans. It's just one issue after another.
right.
And what I have figured out, and I think I've figured it out, I think I've figured it out correctly, is that young girls are using social media as a platform upon which to construct personal soap operas.
Mm,
And they play these soap operas out on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and whatever. I'm sorry, I'm not very savvy concerning social media itself,
sure.
because although I have social media accounts, I have a person in my employ who does nothing but manage that.
Right.
I don't even know what my passwords are. One of my goals one of my goals in life, Andy, is to never go on social media. And
Hey,
here
I understand. I
I mean,
understand. I'm
I'm
an adult and I
74 years.
barely have a handle on it.
Oh, I know. I'm 74 years old. I've never been on social media. I've never been on Facebook. Hey, man, I'm fine.
Yes.
I don't lack, I don't lack anything in my life.
Right.
I've got
Right.
friends. I've got hobbies. I don't need that stuff. Why does anybody need that stuff?
Right. That's
Uh,
and
it seems it seems toxic to me, and it's especially toxic to young girls. Like video games have become toxic to boys.
okay.
The video game attracts the boy because the video game is suited to boys, all of whom have diagnostically ADHD, all boys.
Mm,
So, you know, here's all this activity, this action, this nonstop, chaos going on screen. And so that attracts the boys. They become addicted to video games. And those things have become debilitating to the development of boys.
mm,
And the girls are addicted to the opportunity to construct these dramas
hmm.
on social media. The drama of, I feel so bad about myself, I can't find myself, so I'm cutting myself.
Mm.
Or I've decided I'm no longer a girl, I'm a boy this month.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be, I don't know.
Something else next month.
Maybe I'll change my species next month. You know,
You know, we might be headed in that direction. I don't put anything past social media anymore. Um, so earlier you were talking about how the balance of love and authority creates security. What are some things that we can do as parents to make sure that we have a secure home then?
well, I mean, your children need to know that they are not the center of attention in your family,
Hmm.
which is countercultural today. Your
It
children need
is.
to know that you are the center of attention in your family,
Hmm.
that your job beyond infancy, which is a special consideration in and of itself. Beyond infancy, your job is not to pay attention to them. Their job is to pay attention to you. That's understanding number one. Understanding number two, you do what I tell you to do.
Right.
You follow my lead. Yes is yes, no is no. Why? Because I say so. I tell parents all the time, look, the words "because I said so," they are nothing more than an affirmation of the legitimacy of your authority.
Hmm.
And I don't. It doesn't matter that children do not often like the way parents exercise authority, and that is because children do not know what is in their own best interest.
Very true.
And so, and there is no point in explaining yourself to a child because you are explaining yourself from a point of view that they can't understand.
Right. They don't have your life experience at that
Right.
point.
They will not be able to understand your point of view until they have children your age and their age.
Hmm.
And so the simplest answer, and really in the final analysis, the most comforting answer that a child can hear to why or why not regarding a parental decision is simply, well, because I said so.
Mm.
I'm not going to waste my time here trying to explain an adult point of view to a 10-year-old. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it with a 5-year-old. I'm not going to do it with a 10-year-old. I'm not going to do it with a 17-year-old. An adult perspective is something you, being the age you are, cannot understand. So there'll be no discussion about this. I've
Right.
got better things to do than discuss something with you that you have no understanding of.
Very true. What I hear you saying with authority, because a lot of times the word authority has a negative connotation with a lot of people. Authority is something that is everybody wants to be free, everybody wants to make their own decisions. But what I hear you saying is authority is not necessarily negative. Is that correct?
Well, authority is not in and of itself negative. No, I mean authority can be abused. Authority can be
Very true.
used as a means of exploiting other people. Authority can be used as a means of abusing other people, taking advantage of, et cetera, et cetera. But authority in and of itself is a very, very necessary thing. We all need authority in our lives. The CEO of the world's richest corporation needs authority in his life, whether he realizes it or not.
Hmm.
We all need authority.
Sure.
We all need a higher power in our lives. And unfortunately, that in and of itself is not being widely appreciated today. But yeah, children need authority. They need the grounding that authority properly delivered provides them. And one of the things I do, Andy, is I try to explain to parents that authority in the life of a child is not conveyed by punishing the child. It's not conveyed with consequences for misbehavior, although those things may at times be necessary. Authority is simply the understanding that I described before, that I know what I'm doing here. I'm doing it for your benefit. The fact that you don't understand what I'm doing or don't agree with what I'm doing is irrelevant. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I will do it whether you like it or not. And I'm not going to try and persuade you to like it. And I'm not going to try and reward you into liking it. I've got a dog here that I'm playing
Oh, I
with.
know. He's cute as all get out.
She is. She's 6 months old and she's not only cute, but she's hyperactive as all puppies are. So,
Right. Yeah.
but just this authority is best conveyed in any environment in a very calm, straightforward, matter of fact sort of way.
Right.
And why are you in a position of authority? You are in a position of authority because you understand best how things in this environment ought to be done.
Very good. And that
What?
makes sense. It makes sense. So let me ask you, for an adult parent who may not have had authority or discipline in their lives as a child, is it possible for them as an adult to give that authority to their children?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question, Andy. I get, parents will come up to me at a speaking event. This has happened numerous times, and they'll say, "Well, John, I don't understand how to convey authority
Mm,
because my parents didn't convey authority properly." And I go, "So you understand that your parents didn't convey authority properly?" And they look at me and they go, "Yeah." And I go, well, then you understand. You simply don't know that you understand. You understand how to convey authority properly because your parents showed you by not conveying authority properly how to convey it properly.
right. So
So,
do the opposite that your parents did then.
right. So stop making excuses and just, your
There
parents
you go.
screamed all the time. Don't scream. Your parents did this. Don't do that. I mean, I don't think really, I don't think any competent, functional adult with a sound mind has any excuse for an undisciplined child. No excuse whatsoever.
Very good. Yeah, it sounds like sometimes parents don't want to step up to the level of responsibility that's necessary, or they just don't have the right tools. So I'm glad that you are out there helping parents realize that. As our time together kind of comes to a close here, what's one thing that you would like every family to know about supporting security in the lives of their children?
Well, supporting security in the life of a child is, as I said before, Andy, it's simply a matter of, and you don't have to say, I love you to a child 5 times a day. You don't really need to say that very often at all, but it is to convey to the child that he has nothing to worry about,
Mm,
that you are taking care of business in his life, which does not equate to micromanagement. It simply equates to an understanding that whether the child realizes it or not, he is not competent to deal with certain aspects of the real world, and that you are there to either A, protect him from those aspects, B, prevent him from encountering those aspects, C, that you will deal with those aspects for him on his behalf. And that really is, that is a description of both how you convey authority and how you convey to your child that you love him. I tell parents all the time, look, keep this in mind. You will take a bullet for your child. Your child will not take a bullet for you, which simply means you are the morally superior individual in the relationship. That's a that's a momentous responsibility, and
mhm.
but at the same time, it's one that any functional adult ought to be able to fill. Do
It
it.
is. It is. Yeah, and that's a wonderful point that you've brought home here. So, Mr. Rosemond, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for introducing us to your dog. Where can people find out more about you, your books, your columns, and Parent Guru?
Well, we're building a new website as you and I speak, Andy, but the website is called parentguru.com, just parentguru.com. Um, it links to johnrosemond.com, And but eventually johnrosemond.com is probably going to go away, and the only thing left will be Parent Guru. It's intended to be my legacy. It's intended to be around longer than I will be. So that's the best place to go if people want to find out more about me.
Very good, sir. I thank you so much for your time. God bless you and your work, sir.
God bless you and yours as well, Andy. Thanks a lot.